All right, Rogue One and the Mind-Sucking Monster. Take one. Here we go. I've heard Rogue One, a Star Wars story, referred to as a flawed masterpiece. This is only half right. Flawed, yes. Masterpiece, no. Not at all. Don't get me wrong, I do enjoy the movie. It captures the feel of Star Wars pretty well, especially in that final battle. But the film's editing can sometimes feel underwhelming. A re-edit that focuses the start of the film a bit, removes any dialogue that's just a bunch of nonsense, removes the obviously bad CGI. My god, that CGI is so bad. And gives us one less mind-sucking monster to cringe through would go a long way toward improving the film as a whole. Plus, we can remove the question of why did Krennic's ship unnecessarily land so far away from its destination? I mean, look how far they have to walk. I hope they pack some Scooby snacks and plenty of water. The first example I want to show comes right at the start of Rogue One. We see a lot of planet hopping going on as we introduce Jin's backstory. Then Jin, then Cassian, then Bodhi, then go back to Jin to witness her rescue at the hands of the Rebel Alliance, then finally go to Yavin 4 where the rebels are stationed. That's a lot. Instead of all this planet hopping, we can sum up Jin's backstory in the dream sequence. I'll show you that later. And cut Cassian's and Bodhi's first scenes. We can simply begin with Jin waking up in a prison cell. Then we witness Jin being rescued by the rebels and fly off to Yavin 4. And we're told the reason she's there, which is that a pilot who has defected from the Empire has a message from her father, the man building a superweapon for the Empire, and that the pilot is now being held by a rebellion extremist named Saw Guerrera. The entire setup for the story is told in this scene, so we really don't need to be shown Cassian's or Bodhi's first scenes, and we don't need to show that Jin's parents had a friendship with Saw, as it's implied later when Jin is watching the message from her father. If the movie followed Jin for a bit as she grew up in Saw Guerrera's rebellion, and we were shown how Saw abandoned her, then this start at her childhood would be fine. But since how Jin grew up is something we're told in certain scenes in the film, there's no need to show the entire opening scene. Removing these planet-hopping scenes yields a much cleaner start to the film, and we really aren't losing any valuable information. The opening scene gives us information that's found later in the film, and what we gather from Cassian's and Bodhi's first scenes is repeated in Jin's meeting with the rebels, rendering that scene fully important to the story now, rather than somewhat repetitious. In this case, telling is better than showing.
What does this have to do with my father?
There's an Imperial defector in Jeddah, a pilot. He's been held by Saw Guerrera. He's claiming the Emperor is creating a weapon with the power to destroy entire planets.
We're introducing the characters more naturally now. Rather than cutting to Cassian and cutting to Bodhi for their scenes, we're going to introduce them along the way from the perspective of Jin, who meets Cassian on Yavin 4. Then from the perspective of Cassian, who meets Bodhi while on Jeddah. We're picking up the characters as we go along in the story now. Plus, since the first place we naturally see Bodhi is when Cassian discovers him in the prison, we can now cut out this horribly cringy mind-sucking monster scene.
Hey, get a room, guys. Whoa! Oh, that's not right. No.
As for Krennic's introduction, since we're removing that opening scene, and we're removing CG Tarkin, because the CG is just so ew, Krennic will now first be seen in full much later in the film. Remember, the idea here is to introduce characters naturally, so the most natural introduction of Krennic is when Jin finds her father and finds Krennic speaking to him. However, we can plant the seed of how he's tied to Jin's tragic past by taking that opening scene and cutting it into the nightmare Jin has while on her flight to Jeddah. You know, instead of having the nightmare be about that time when Saw Guerrera rescued her.
What's the matter, Jin? You look frightened.
So far, we see young Jin watching her parents celebrate with Krennic, as if they're all friends. One of the strange things about Rogue One is that the movie never addresses how that friendship was fractured. What pushed Galen to break away from the Empire and hide from Krennic? I mean, Galen was working on the Death Star reactor technology, and he clearly knew Krennic, and they were friends. So what happened that caused Galen to run away and hide somewhere? Was it an accidental discovery that the reactor technology would be used in the Death Star? We don't know, and the movie doesn't bother telling us. So let's just keep looking at this dream sequence.
I'll always protect you. Stardust. Don't ever change.
What's bothering me about this dream sequence is that we already began the movie in the past, then fast forwarded to the present time, and now here we are in the past again. So, Rogue One isn't only planet hopping, it's time hopping as well. If the movie had given us multiple scenes of Jin's past to show us key events in her life as she was growing up, then having a look into her past through the opening scene, and then this dream sequence as well, would have felt more consistent with the rest of the movie. But that's not how the movie goes from here on, which is another reason to remove that opening scene, to avoid the non-committal time hopping.
Trust. Galen.
This nightmare seems to revolve around Jin's abandonment, but let's see what it looks like when the nightmare is more centered on the tragedy that befell Jin's parents, most notably her mother.
What's the matter, Jin? You look frightened. I'll always protect you.
My child, go.
Trust the Force.
Stardust. Mira.
Making the nightmare be more about Jin's parents also gives us a bit of context to the next scene in which Jin wakes and looks at her kyber crystal. Why would Jin look at her kyber crystal after seeing Saw Guerrera in her nightmare? That just doesn't make sense, since it was Jin's mother who gave her the crystal. Also, we're now summing up the entire opening scene in a few quick clips. Plus, we're removing inconsistencies like Krennic saying to Galen that Farm Life is lonely, even though he's not told Galen's wife is dead until after he says that. And if you want to say that Krennic was being sarcastic, why would he be sarcastic when he knows that Galen knows that he knows that Galen has a wife and child? Also, why would Galen think that simply saying that his wife is dead would make Krennic think that he was alone on the farm, since Krennic already knows that Galen has a wife and child? Ugh. Do you see already why this movie, while enjoyable, is not a masterpiece? Anyway, since we got the planet hopping, so we can smooth out the choppiness of the film's opening, we also need to cut the other of Bodhi's scenes up until he's introduced as a prisoner of Saw Guerrera. Because of this, we'll push back Saw Guerrera's first scene to the point in the film when he reunites with Jin. Saw isn't a terribly important character in this movie, so limiting his appearance to this one part of the film really doesn't hurt the story at all. The storytelling is strengthened by the fact that we're not throwing characters onto the screen, one after the other, too quickly, as if they're all important. Instead, we get to spend a little extra time with the initial characters before introducing new characters through the already established characters. In making this change concerning Saw, the first time we see him isn't about him expressing his worries.
Lies! Deceptions!
You didn't capture me, I came in myself. I defected.
Every day, more lies.
I think the movie is trying to show why he's a radical, but I'm okay with simply being told that he's a radical. I really don't need to see this descent into space madness.
You're rebels, aren't you?
Yes, but Saw Guerrera is an extremist. He's been fighting on his own since he broke with the rebellion. His militancy has caused the Alliance a great many problems.
Saw is a side character, after all, so he's not terribly important, though his role in the story affects Jin. So, the first time we see Saw, it should be more through Jin's eyes, with a bit of dialogue concerning their history.
You left me behind.
You were already the best soldier in my cadre.
I was 16.
I was protecting you.
You dumped me.
You were the daughter of an Imperial science officer. People were starting to figure that out. People who wanted to use you as a hostage.
Of course, we still have to cut down this scene a bit since we have to remove Saw's cringy dialogue concerning his space madness, which bogs down the entire scene. It's just unnecessary. Let's do a comparison.
Not a day goes by that I don't think of you. But today, of all days, it's a trap.
I'm sorry, but no Star Wars movie after Return of the Jedi should ever repeat the line, "It's a trap." It's just not the same.
It's a trap!
What?
The pilot, the message, all of it.
Why is this movie wasting time with this? The point of this scene isn't about Saw's space madness or why he doesn't trust the rebels or anyone. We should keep the spotlight on Jin.
Did they send you? Did you come here to kill me? There's not much of me left.
The Alliance wants my father.
Do you see how Saw looks like a complete idiot now? I mean, according to the earlier lies, deceptions scene, he's supposed to not trust anyone, yet he has his troops bring Jin right to him. Then he's appearing extremely saddened and worried right in front of Jin, and all she says in reaction to his mental breakdown is,
The Alliance wants my father. They think he sent you a message about a weapon. I guess they think by sending me, you might actually help them out.
So what is it that you want, Jin?
They wanted an introduction, they've got it.
okay, now let's trim that down to remove Saw's space madness. I mean, we've already been told that he leads a radical band of rebels. So let's portray Saw as someone who is more confident and mentally together in his position.
Not a day goes by that I don't think of you. So what is it that you want, Jin?
The Alliance wants my father. They think he sent you a message about a weapon.
Oh, look, we got right to the point rather than played to a space madness angle that simply doesn't matter in terms of the overall story. Let's go a bit further.
They wanted an introduction, they've got it. I'm out now. Rest of you can do what you want.
You care not about the cause.
The cause? Seriously?
Do you see how we're showing Saw as more of a confident character now? He's together, he knows what he's doing, he trusts Jin. Now that the spotlight is squarely on this, with no distraction, we've effectively strengthened his later plea to Jin that she go with Cassian, who Saw knows is a rebel who cares for the cause. Seriously, Saw works much better as a character when he's confident, not when he's portrayed as mentally broken and whatever this is. I have no idea why the music score was playing that up as if the action was important. Just listen to how the music kicks in to try to enhance the action. But like I was saying, when we strengthen Saw's portrayal in the story, we strengthen his plea to Jin to save the rebellion. It's as if he's passing the torch to her. Like he's saying that he's unable to sustain the fight anymore, but she can. That's all for now. Stay tuned for part 2 of 2, coming as soon as I can get that mind-sucking monster out of my head.
Oh, that's not right. No.